The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me, Chit-Chatting with Jocelyn. I'm your host, Jocelyn. We have a fabulous show lined up for you. I have an excellent guest, Miss Ann Copp, and she has some unbelievable information. You all know about New Hampshire voter integrity, which was started by Marilyn Todd, a good friend of both of ours, who really has put through a lot of information about Windham and what really went on with Windham. And then as people started to find out what kind of corruption there was, a lot of backstabbing started happening, a lot of bad things happening, a lot of lies went on. But we went on to do our own investigations. Mm-hmm. We went on to find out what's going on in our towns. What are these machines that this group is talking about? What is it? What are these tally tapes? We had all these questions, and that's when you and I met officially. And I went to the town of Amherst and filed a Freedom of Information Act, which is a FOIA, and I got the tally tapes. And I had no idea what I was looking for. I just had heard all these things, Windham. The whole United States heard about Windham. So I just took we had three machines. I took the three tally tapes and I laid them down on the table and taped them down. And I went, okay, I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm not an accountant. I don't really know what this is. And I just started on the first line and I compared the top line and the next line and next line. And I find out that the dates are different. But it was November 3rd was the date
of the
election.
Legally the only day.
It's got a different date, so I circle it. And I keep going on, and they've got, it's not a code, but they had a different section numbers, and I started seeing differences. And then I was like, okay, I don't know what it is, but it's different. So I circled it. So what's not normal, you question. I know it's normal, would be all the same, and it's not normal. So I start going down, and so I said, I get a piece of paper. And each tape, and I did the totals for each one of the offices, and I did it according to each one of the machines, and I find machine 1 is this number, machine 2 is a way less number for Republicans, and machine 3 is always double the first machine, which was always for Democrats. How is that possible? And I literally looked at the numbers, and they were double, not 1.5 times, not one times more, double. And the only race that was in reverse was the governor's race. In machine 1, the Democrat votes were low. Machine 2, for the governor, the Republican votes were high. And on machine 3, the Republican votes were double. That was the only race. So I immediately called up, started asking the tally tape. That's when everybody go get your tally tapes from the towns. And that's when the towns started saying, you can't, you're not allowed to, it's private, blah, blah, blah. We've already sealed it up. But that's how I got involved. Yeah. What happened to you?
Well, actually, I went to Windham. I was a representative at the time of Derry, and I went to the town hall when the town select board save only one guy who was trying to do the right thing, kept jerking the folks around. The citizens were sent to the high school. We're going to go up there. No, you're going to come back here. No, and about probably a quarter of the people that were between the two locations wound up going home. They didn't know what to do. So anyway, I would have to correct the record too. I'm not a friend of Marilyn Todd. I hardly knew her. I would
I'm
say
sorry.
that's okay. We're acquaintances, but my focus was on Derry, and I didn't want to overshadow anything going on in Windham, so I let those guys run off. I went over and helped them as best I could, but I was a representative of Derry, so I went back to my hometown, and I found out that the votes for that day, November 3rd, for the mail-in candidates, what do they call it, absentee ballots, of all of the people voting in Derry, 18,000 people voted that day. 1,836 were absentee ballots, which was a 10% and above.
That's very
insane.
high because it's
Extremely
normally
high,
2 or 3.
Right,
Yeah, 2%,
now,
3 on a really good time.
people will tell you that it's because of COVID, but that's not exactly true. And I really smelled a rat, and I wasn't sure what to do about it. Now, Jim Kofalt and Robin Rousseau and some other folks helped me with this little investigation we were doing in the town of Derry. Now, I did this quietly because I didn't want to offend. I wanted to wait and see what happened in Windham. And quite frankly, with the AG's office and the Secretary of State, since when do you have to have a Senate Bill 43 to get them to do their job? You don't. They get paid taxpayer money every week for 40 hours of what? Investigating any kind of voter fraud.
Correct.
Now, what happened to me, I created this like welcome wagon postcard.
It's pretty.
And I sent it to all the 1,836 people, I'm just going to use that word.
Absentee voters,
Yep,
alleged.
absentee voters. And I asked for return receipt requested from the post office, which costs more money, meaning they have to send it back to you, don't just throw it away.
Okay.
And there's a little sticker here, it says, unable to forward, no mail receptacle. A constant. I got back about 260 cards. These are the addresses. And I sent a letter, which the state is supposed to do, to all the folks, and if it gets returned, the AG's office is supposed to go back and investigate with an AG deputy. The town of Derry, if they had 1,836, there's a high number. Now, my town mail clerk started throwing away these cards, and they're not supposed to do that.
That's
day one.
Isn't that a federal offense?
I went to the Postmaster General to complain, and they're investigating her already, because she's the same lady that took my honorable mailing and marked it through and just took it and took off the honorable. I have it here with a black Sharpie.
What do you mean?
She just decided, because she realized I was a state representative, that she didn't like honorable title, so she put a black Sharpie through it.
So not only was she throwing away
I think she did this before she
mail,
threw that away. Yeah.
She was touching private personal mail.
Federal offense. Yep. Definitely in the mailbox, the whole 9. So the Postmaster General promised to look into it. And the first 3 days of receiving these postcards, about 50 a day for 3 days. And the 4th day, nothing. No card, not even one. Wouldn't you think you'd get a straggler here and there?
Yeah, or 5,
and they are kind of
something.
small. You know, they're small. You can see them throwing them away, but I needed them for a particular reason. I wanted to prove that there was illegal voting going on in Derry. Now, one of the things that sticks out in your mind is Shenito Road, number 5, was on a lot of the mailings.
Okay.
Well, it happens to be a condo development, and there are about 300 apartments in there. So it should say number 5, Shenito Road, apartment 25, apartment 30, right?
Well, yeah, because they're apartment buildings, so there has to be apartment numbers.
They got returned because they weren't real people that lived there. Now, the town moderator knew that because she knows that address. She lives in the town. She's the moderator for Derry. She knows all the addresses. Her and the supervisor of the checklist are intimately familiar with who's in town.
Correct.
So 1,836 is a huge number. I challenged everyone and said, hey, this isn't right. This is evidence. When people tell you there's no evidence of voter fraud, I've got a ton of it for you. And I've got pictures. I also have
now you have an investigation with the postmaster for the postal delivery person who touched your mail and crossed out honorable and was caught throwing out your postcards.
And she may be fired. That will be her, sentence, if you will. I'd really rather see someone that does something like that go to jail for a month or 2 and just say, hey, I should never do that again. But this is happening. Now, if you think about Derry, and the Secretary of State's not looking into Derry's return mails, what about the rest of the state? All the other towns have similar situations. If anyone else dared to go look at their absentee voter list, you'll see it's exorbitantly high from any other election. And it needs to be looked into.
I think across the state, Mike Lindell and Dr. Franks had looked into it, and it was huge increase in absentee ballots. And COVID does not explain it.
No.
Because absentee ballots, correct me if I'm wrong, are only for two reasons. The one is if you are out of state and
town,
out of country,
right.
or you
Incapacitated,
are
hospital.
Yep. Disabled.
Right.
But the governor extended, not the legislature who should have done this, expanded the reasons for being able to have an absentee ballot. Well, if your babysitter couldn't come, or work wouldn't let you off, or you didn't feel comfortable, or, which is illegal.
Totally.
So that's, for any reason it was expanded. Now in Georgia and many other states, but Georgia, because of 2,000 mules, you will see they had drop boxes. We didn't have drop boxes in New Hampshire, but we did have absolutely enormously expanded numbers of absentee ballots.
Absolutely.
Which are supposed to be investigated by the Secretary of State when something like this comes back?
Well, there's a Band-Aid fix in an election year. The Secretary of State now is Dave Scanlon,
Yes.
right? He has a voter confidence committee. Right? And I went to it and spoke to it and shared my data with them. And they said, what do you want to do? And I said, we need a statewide audit, and we need the auditor to be Jovan, which was the request of all the Windham residents, all the Windham people to help with the canvassing and all of that. That was their one and only request. They were ignored. SB 43 came up as a solution. It cost the state $5 million of the taxpayers' money for nothing. We got a big fat goose egg for that. Yep.
$5 million?
And Harry Hursty was the one that was in that kill chain video that proved that you can hack these machines.
Correct.
And they went to that man to flip and do 180 degree and say that
I was there that day. Were you there that day?
No, but he also
I was.
erased our memory cards in Windham. They were one of the most pristine leftover memory cards.
So the
He
memory.
wiped them
So
clean.
let's talk about the memory cards for a minute, so everybody understands this. So we have these Dominion AccuVote diebold machines. They go by many names. They were put into place 43 years ago.
John H.
For
Sununu.
sorry.
By John H. Sununu.
By
Papa Sununu.
John Sununu, Papa Sununu, from a company. Dominion is in Canada. Put them in 43 years ago. It was for a 3-year trial basis. They've now been here 43 years. But Jocelyn, but Anne, it's 2022, it's 2016. We are technologically just so advanced, it's stupid to hand count. You can't hand count. Machines, they helped us. Well then, the legislature should have heard from the people, we want machines. We want to keep
never did
machines. The people never said that. The people never requested of the legislature, their representatives, to put forth a bill. The legislature didn't even on their own go, oh, we've had these machines for how many years? How many millions of dollars have taxpayers spent for these trial basis machines that were never approved? Didn't put a bill forward on their own, didn't try to change it and say, yeah, we need these machines, we're technologically, advanced, let's do this. They didn't. So, Daniel Richard, the constitutional expert, and I quote, all, according to the Constitution, it has never been amended, never. So therefore it must stand as it was written in the year, whatever year it was. All ballots shall, not maybe, not kinda, not if you feel like it, not for the better, the good of all, shall be hand counted. The moderator shall hand count the ballots in an open meeting in front of the councilman or selectman, depending on what you have in your town, and the town clerk. Hand counted.
Can I mention a moderator?
That's not done. Correct. Go for it.
We're always told that these machines are not on the internet, right? These election poll workers don't understand, and the volunteers that, God bless them, they do yeoman's work, but they don't know anything about Wi-Fi cards or NIC cards or RJ45, LAN cables. What happened in my polling place when I got my, the strips, the tapes from the Derry election, the moderator, I asked her, I said, okay, looking at this piece of paper, this is the motherboard. Tell me on this motherboard where the NIC card is or the Wi-Fi card is on the motherboard of this machine. She gave me that blank stare you'd expect.
Like, what are you
She's
talking
not an IT
about?
person. She has no idea at all if this is on the internet or not. And that's why we need the resolve. I keep saying that.
So in these, thank you, in these machines is a memory card. The memory card goes in, and it does exactly that, memorizes. Let me just throw in a question here. How do the towns get the information from those memory cards to the
Internet.
Secretary of State?
Internet.
What?
Internet. LAN connection. Wi-Fi connection.
But,
Oh,
they don't connect to the internet, Ann.
doves. They take doves and they fly up there. Yeah, not. And they are connected.
I'm not being sarcastic,
We're just being
people.
facetious.
Yeah. But we're telling the truth.
Absolutely.
When they tell you they don't connect to the internet, they are lying.
Bold face. And I can say on the behalf of the election workers and volunteers, they really don't know. And it's not their job to know.
No.
It's our job to guard that vote and make it clear and fair and clean elections.
So
The
we're just-
legislature.
You ask the questions, and you know, you guys would sure as heck jump down my throat or Ann's throat and say, "Man, conspiracy theory, we don't believe you." Why don't you take that anger? Why don't you take that questioning, and why don't you go to the Attorney General and the Secretary of State and behave the same way to them?
Ask them
Just
to do
saying.
their job.
The memory cards, any of the ballots, anything that had to do with the election,
22 months.
federal election must be kept for,
22 months.
which is September of this year.
Exactly. And they've been wiped out last August.
Every town, with the exception of Windham, every town sends the memory cards back to LHS, which is a company that does all the programming and software for, I believe it's 8 New England states. I'll leave it there. Send the memory cards back to be wiped and cleaned because the town election is always 3 months later.
March.
So that's all they've ever known. They take the memory cards, they send them back to LHS, they wipe them, they send them back, we reprogram them. The federal law says you cannot destroy, wipe clean, throw away, shred all the things that have happened across the United States for 22 months, which is this coming September.
Which means, in theory, our memory cards should be fully intact, and they're not.
Do you understand why people are upset?
And Harry Hursty wiped them.
And Harry,
That's
the
right.
one set of memory cards that were perfect because Windham, for some reason, God bless them, did not send the cards back to the state. Excuse me,
LHS.
to LHS. I apologize. Back to LHS, which is how they were able to have an audit. Harry Hursty wiped them clean. And I was there the day when the head of LHS was in the room and handed a booklet how to start the machines, duplicate, read, whatever all those words are. I'm not going to pretend I know what this technology is, but whatever he had to do the audit and restart the machines and print it out exactly as it was on the memory cards that day. How do we not know those instructions weren't tainted? Why would you take instructions that day from the owner of the company who owns those machines and the memory cards?
And what was Harry Hursty's claim to fame? He's a hacker. Hello? Does anybody see a problem with that? I mean, that's outrageous.
I could see him as a consultant, but not a hands-on. So this is the problem we had with Windham. And now we have this commission.
Secretary of State formed a board, and it's supposed to be listening to people's complaints and asking us, what do we want? When I get up there and showed them all my evidence of all the voter fraud, the elections I was involved, firsthand information from me explaining that to them, they're like, okay. And I'm like, don't you want to hear a solution? And that was the solution, is to have Jovan Pulitzer do the whole entire state audit.
The whole state, not
The whole
two cities,
state, the whole
not
state,
two towns.
all elections, not just one election, not a slanted election, not a slanted town, because some of our towns are suburban. Some of them are inner cities, like Nashua is a city, Manchester, Concord, Rochester, Franklin, North Country. These are bigger areas where more people are. And it is tough on the election officials, but we need to make their job easier by not making it electronic. Make it one person, one vote, it gets counted. We can't wait for 1.3 million people, which you know they're not all voters. In Derry, it was only 18,000 voters that were legitimately registered. 26,000 people live there. So across the state, you got children, some people that are not on the rolls.
You take out the
can't
people
vote,
under 18,
right?
you take out the
in
children,
jail,
you take
illegals,
out...
those are supposed to be
Yep.
taken out, but you know what happens there too. So then you will have an actual,
Now
clean
this
election.
committee, commission, whatever it is, Daniel Richard and Al Brandano spoke at. Brenda Ladd spoke. Did Regina?
Brenda Town.
Town,
spoke.
sorry.
Yeah, and Regina.
Brenda Town. Brenda
Barn-
Ladd is
Yep.
the Secretary of State's guy.
Yep.
Town. She spoke because she
Yep.
actually did the door knocking and
Canvassing.
has over, I believe, 2,000 affidavits.
She
of
gave them a
people-
copy.
Right.
It was like bigger than anything I have here. Plunk right on the desk. I loved it. I'm certain that they're
Yep.
copies, but don't let your originals go because you never see them
give
again.
up your originals.
Yeah.
So we also have, can't remember the name of the committee, but it's the committee that put
Election
forth
law?
the election something funding that they want to purchase a tabulating counting machine that's between $50,000 and $100,000 for the state audit. When you read through the paperwork, the state audit is 2 towns picked by
No,
them.
no.
That's not a state audit.
And this
2
falls-
towns is not a state audit.
This falls on the Secretary of State's office. It's his job, and everyone working in his office's job. Secondarily to that is the AG's office. It's their job to investigate voter fraud and bring people to justice. Now, if anyone goes to the Secretary of State's website, you'll see 4 or 5 little incidents where they say a college student was sleeping on a sofa and moved away. No fraud here. Next, and they only have 5. Out of a whole entire state, only 5. I have 260 that haven't been researched. I have 300 that haven't been researched.
And how many
I
did
have
Ed
more
Nail
from
have?
Andover. And Ed, I brought these to Ed. Ed saw all of these. He knows, and none of that came to justice because I don't understand. The taxpayers paid for them to do that job. They're paying them right now, and this is an election year. This commission is very convenient for the Secretary of State to convene one and talk about voter confidence. There is no voter confidence in New Hampshire because we did not have a clean and fair election in New Hampshire.
And
Sorry,
it has
Governor.
nothing to do with Biden winning, Trump not winning. It has nothing to do
It's
with that. It's
nonpartisan.
pure numbers, actual
Who brought
evidence.
forth the audit for Windham? Which candidate? Which party? It was a Democrat.
Correct.
For her recount. So without that woman, we wouldn't even know that there was a problem
Wasn't
in
that
Windham.
approximately 400 or 300 per
300.
machine?
Yeah, it was about
Which
300.
and it for a total of about 1,200.
I think it was 900.
Okay. That's not an insignificant amount of votes.
Not at all. From one little town?
When we listen to, well, when you hand count it and all's said and done, there might be 5 to 20. We're talking 300 per candidate.
Yep. And when they talk about the machines after the audit with Harry Hursty, they claim it's because there was a fold on the ballot that screwed it up. Well, do you want you to be the voter who has their particular ballot that folded and your vote got erased? Nobody would want that.
I mean,
Unacceptable at this current state.
it
Unacceptable.
could be that there was a vote and it squashed over the name, but wait a minute. It should have been kicked out because the machines are so sensitive that they kick out. I've seen how many they kick out in that drawer.
Their argument is shot full of holes. Totally. Yep.
As usual. And we have the right. We pay for the machines.
Yep.
And we have for 43 years. That should piss you off. We are not allowed to be equally represented by poll watchers and inspectors. In New Hampshire, I believe the gentleman is Joe Gagnon, and he said that it's only recently that we've been able to have Republican poll watchers because something had happened 40 years ago, and that was just lifted. I'll have to find out more about that, or you talk to Joe when you see him.
I don't know anything about that.
But what that says to me is we were never equally represented, and I would be just as PO'd if that was Democrat poll watchers that were not allowed to observe and question.
Well, Mary Till from Derry was a moderator in the 2018 election, and Jim Morgan was the town councilor at the time. They actually took ballots to the polling place separately without oversight. The boxes were open, not sealed. So tell me what happened between the school at West Running Brook and the polling location where they were going to count these votes, which is supposed to have a police escort. She got spanked by Bill Gardner, sent a letter and said, cease and desist this behavior. You will not conduct the general election in this manner. And she sent back to him, this is the way we do things in Derry, and defied the Secretary of State. This is a moderator. She's no longer the moderator, but the new moderator is no better. That's the one that didn't know where the LAN card or the Wi-Fi could be on a motherboard, because she wouldn't know. They don't have that knowledge.
This is very upsetting, and we have a primary coming up on the 22 months from the federal election. People, you need to do your due diligence. You need to pay attention. This is not something we can ignore right now, because if one wrong person gets in falsely and illegally.
We resolved to remedy this issue.
Tell
with
us in
citizenry.
the last 2 minutes, what is the resolve about,
This
and what
is
do
a
people need to know?
citizen's solution to the lesser of two evils. After the primary, when the guy gets in or the gal gets in that you didn't want,
The person that was selected?
the selected person gets chosen, and that was not your candidate. Most people are left with the lesser of two evils: hold your nose, vote, or vote straight ticket Republican. You don't know anything about those people,
Straight
and you
ticket
vote
Democrat.
straight. Right.
You should be voting for the
Absolutely.
person,
The
their
person,
integrity, their
they
background, and what they
represent you.
stand for.
And the resolve is going to put forth candidates by the people, for the people, presented and selected by the people, and they're going to have a write-in, which means they're going to have to count all those votes. It's fabulous. It's an excellent brainchild idea, and I have to give credit where credit's due. Therese Grinnell, who was one of the New Hampshire 9 that were arrested.
Yep.
This woman is a nurse, a family, a mom. She's trying to do her thing. We all have that excuse, we don't have time. Make some time. This is your election being stolen from underneath your nose. And we're complicit, and we've ceded our power, and we cannot do that any longer.
And it will affect your children. I'm sorry, I'll be honest. I can't stand when it's for the children, for the children. No, what's for the children is stopping sex trafficking. What's for the children is stopping human trafficking. What's for the children is donating their bodies to science and selling their bodies. That's for the children. But in this case, if we don't clean up our voting and make it 99.99% honest and true,
One person,
and clear,
one vote. Simple.
one person, one vote,
Hand
it
counted.
will affect your children and mine, and it will be absolutely devastating.
Not to mention your wallet. Look at things now with inflation, gas prices, all of that. They get the opportunity to vote to increase your taxes, your property taxes. You don't have a say if you don't have the right person in there.
Correct.
Ready and willing and able to be a staunch defender of your wallet, staunch defender of our platform, our Constitution, smaller government, less control.
Yep.
We don't have that. It's a runaway train right now.
It is.
And unfortunately, our governor is a
Right
Republican.
up there.
Yeah.
Locked us down 13 times
Right.
unconstitutionally. I want to thank you so much for coming and
Thank
doing this
you.
show with me. And
Absolutely, my
I can't
pleasure.
wait till we come back again.
Yeah.
And I encourage everybody to share this show, share everything. Check out The Resolve. Also follow Daniel Richard, very clear, Daniel Richard, no S, constitutionalist. He has a case up in the Supreme Court. He has a case in the Superior Court. He's going to be filing 2 more, as are a bunch of us. And we are going to make them follow the Constitution, and they're going, the New Hampshire Constitution, and hold their feet to the fire.
Absolutely.
We all must do that. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. My
Have
pleasure.
a great day, everybody, and I'll see you next time.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.